I was a Mossad operative sent into Gaza, trained to face death and deception. But deep inside those tunnels, I discovered a terror that no weapon or mission could ever prepare me for. I was trained to compartmentalize memory, to strip experience into tactical fragments. Still, fragments return. The smell of iron dust in recycled oxygen, the hiss of regulator valves in silence heavier than air. This testimony is written under directive, yet the words resist obedience. Each attempt to capture sequence fractures into contradiction. I remain uncertain whether memory or report is the truer enemy. The official record states our mission parameters involved subterranean infiltration and confirmation of hostile infrastructure. I affirm the language as correct but incomplete. Standard engagement doctrines cannot describe what waited below. My words are not confession. They are an attempt at containment. Language is brittle, but it is the last weapon left to me. Consider this my warning, not report. Sealed chambers, endless kilometers of tunnels, reinforced concrete intersecting natural caverns. The environment was catalogued in advance through satellite heat signatures, yet the maps lied. Dimensions bent in ways not accounted for by physics. No explanation satisfies. Measurements collapsed upon review, as if geometry itself recoiled. Instruments registered depth inconsistent with Earth's crust. Still, we proceeded, tethered to command by failing frequencies. As I write, I understand the futility of order. Testimonies are designed for clarity, yet what we faced devoured clarity first. I will proceed in sequence as best I can, though sequence itself bent and folded beneath those corridors. If my testimony falters, remember this. The tunnels were not built solely by human hands. Something else used them, long before us. Operational justification framed the tunnels as logistics arteries for hostile units, channels for weapon stockpiles and insurgent movement. Mossad intelligence traced signatures of unknown equipment to deep subsectors unreachable by drones. Command authorized infiltration under the highest secrecy. Official language described strategic disruption. Unofficial whispers in briefing halls called it reconnaissance of something beyond conventional adversary, though no officer admitted it aloud. The geopolitical climate pressed urgency. External allies demanded decisive strikes, while internal factions sought deniable clarity. Gaza's tunnels symbolized unresolved warfare, endless corridors, vanishing fighters, invisible arsenals. Previous attempts with demolition charges yielded incomplete collapses. Analysts noted inexplicable echoes in seismic readings. Command dismissed anomalies as faulty instruments. I record now that those echoes were the first warnings, though none listened. Our team was selected with precision. Psychological screening prioritized resilience against sensory deprivation. Radiation exposure protocols were rehearsed, though no nuclear material was expected. Oxygen reserves were doubled. Noise discipline was absolute. Each measure implied awareness of unseen threat, though framed in rational terms. In hindsight, rationality was camouflage. Command feared something more than insurgents. They feared confirmation of old intelligence. Satellite reconnaissance revealed impossible thermal blooms deep underground, patterns resembling spirals, not random heat pockets. Some analysts claimed geological faulting. Others whispered about structures predating modern conflict. The mission demanded silence, for allies would interpret discovery as destabilization of treaties. Stakes exceeded battlefield. They reached into history itself. What waited below could alter doctrine, policy, and faith in the laws of matter. Thus the order was sealed. Operation Rising Lion. We were to penetrate, confirm, and erase. Nothing was to surface beyond what aligned with conventional warfare narratives. To disobey would mean erasure not only of clearance, but of existence. We entered Gaza not merely as soldiers. We entered as caretakers of silence, guardians of truths that governments refused to acknowledge could exist. The team numbered 5, excluding myself. Each member carried the weight of both specialization and secrecy. Selection criteria were clinical, detached, yet beneath dossiers lay fragments of humanity. I record them as they were before the tunnels remade them. Their skills anchored the mission, their vulnerabilities foreshadowed unraveling. To remember them without distortion is impossible, but I will try. The commander, operational head, was a man forged from decades of clandestine conflict. His speech was precise, devoid of hesitation, each sentence a scalpel. He distrusted technology's promise, preferring maps etched by hand. Beneath discipline flickered something like weariness, though buried under iron composure. He entered the tunnels not as zealot, but as reluctant custodian of responsibility, heavier than stone. Our medic carried an encyclopedic knowledge of physiology. Calm, clinical. His humor existed only in half-smiles delivered after triage was complete. He claimed lineage of healers, though confessed disdain for myth. Instruments were his scripture, vital signs his prayer. Yet in silence, I saw him scribbling fragmented diagrams on scraps of paper, organs drawn in patterns resembling constellations, unspoken purpose hidden. The demolitions expert was restless energy incarnate. His hands trembled only before detonation, never after. He loved precision charges as others loved music, measuring ratios as though composing symphonies. He carried photographs of crumbling buildings not as trophies but as verses of art. He called destruction cleansing. In darkness, I wondered if he sought tunnels not to collapse, but to awaken. Our communications specialist was lean, analytic, tethered perpetually to waves of invisible signals. He heard order within static, claimed he could map personalities by their radio bursts. While others found comfort in silence, he found silence unbearable, filling it with whispered patterns. Once, during training, he described hearing syllables buried in scrambled transmissions. None of us laughed. We only remembered. The veteran leader completed the circle. Older than the rest, his skin bore maps of conflicts unrecorded in official annals. His presence stabilized chaos. His voice carried gravity that steadied nerves. He rarely spoke of personal life, though once he muttered about vineyards far from war. It was an image so fragile I feared the tunnels would crush it forever. And I, the operative tasked with recording what others would suppress, existed between roles. Mossad demanded compartmentalization, yet memory is porous. I was trained to endure distortions, to stitch contradictions into coherent narrative. The others trusted equipment. I trusted perception. That trust would become liability. Each of us carried strengths, yet in tunnels where physics trembled, strengths unraveled into curses. Together we formed the unit of Operation Rising Lion, a constellation of expertise orbiting an unspoken void. Official records will list us as soldiers assigned to routine infiltration. I testify otherwise. We were instruments drawn not to victory, but to revelation. And revelation is a burden none of us were prepared to carry. None returned whole. Some did not return. The briefing chamber smelled of copper wiring and recycled air. Maps projected onto walls displayed Gaza's southern arteries in glowing veins, arteries feeding unseen organs. Commanders spoke in clipped language: infiltration, reconnaissance, erasure. No word conveyed uncertainty. Beneath their tones pulsed urgency, a thrum echoing not from voices but from silence between. We understood. Failure would be buried, success never acknowledged. Satellite overlays displayed coordinates spiraling downward. Heat blooms formed concentric circles, unnatural in geological context. Analysts framed them as hidden generators or weapons caches. Yet one slide, quickly redacted, depicted faint glyph-like shapes within thermal gradients. A technician stammered before deletion. We pretended not to see. Already, reality resisted containment, spilling beyond classified screens, bleeding into imagination we could not voice. Logistics followed. Gear was standard. Oxygen rigs rated for prolonged subterranean descent, encrypted radios, night vision goggles, motion trackers calibrated against false positives. Ammunition was minimal, demolition charges prioritized. Command emphasized silence over engagement. A single misstep could unravel treaties, yet our kits contained experimental recorders unmarked by manufacturer. Their function was not explained. Their presence unsettled more than the weight of weapons. Deployment protocols rehearsed endlessly, insertion by night, approach via armored convoy disguised as humanitarian transport, extraction window aligned with satellite blackout. Precision bordered on ritual. Command's final order was chilling in simplicity. Document, confirm, erase. No elaboration followed. The language reduced us to caretakers of denial. I wondered if truth itself was considered contamination, demanding sterilization at its discovery. As convoy engines ignited, silence pressed heavier than armor. No one spoke of fear. Fear was an indulgence denied. Yet glances exchanged between us revealed cracks. The medic's fingers tapped rhythms against thigh, as if measuring heartbeats not yet faltering. The demolitions expert hummed softly, discordant, almost prayer-like. Communications specialist adjusted dials compulsively. The veteran leader's eyes remained fixed on unseen horizons. I carried briefing documents, though words blurred each time I read them. Clauses seemed to rearrange, instructions reform into contradictory sequences. One line appeared, then vanished. Do not look directly at the walls. I blinked, and it was gone. Perhaps fatigue, perhaps misprint. Yet deep within I sensed that command briefings themselves were already touched by what lay beneath. Night cloaked our approach. Convoy wheels crushed gravel into whispers. The city loomed silent, windows black, streets emptied under curfew. Infiltration demanded invisibility, yet I felt unseen eyes tracking movement. The tunnels waited, patient. The operation was framed as swift, surgical. But in the stillness, I understood the truth. We were not hunters descending. We were offerings lowered into something's waiting maw. We departed under blackout conditions, convoy disguised in neutral markings. The air pressed dense against windows, carrying a metallic tang that clung to lungs. Street lamps flickered irregularly, casting shadows that lagged behind motion as though reluctant to follow. Engines murmured low, synchronized to radio silence. Inside the armored hull, breathing sounded amplified, every inhalation a confession. None dared interrupt silence. The commander distributed final directives with surgical calm. His voice carried weight that silenced doubt, yet in his gaze lingered fracture. He traced coordinates on laminated maps, gestures steady though knuckles whitened. He repeated extraction timeline precisely, 36 minutes from insertion to signal confirmation. Behind calculation hovered a truth we refused to name. Timelines crumble when physics itself mutinies. Our approach funneled into wastelands of demolished blocks, rubble mounded like ossuaries of concrete, jagged teeth gnawing at night. No civilians stirred. Structures leaned unnaturally, as though gravity slouched unevenly in that zone. Communications specialist confirmed static interference across all bands, describing it as resonance. He refused elaboration, jaw tightening. Monitors displayed surges resembling heartbeat patterns. I prayed they were mechanical. Vehicles halted precisely where satellite scans had marked subterranean access. From exterior, nothing betrayed significance. A collapsed foundation, rebar twisted into veins. Yet the ground exhaled faint drafts colder than night. The medic knelt, sensors confirming oxygen fluctuation inconsistent with sealed chambers. Air itself seemed restless, inhaling and exhaling, as though Earth possessed lungs. None voiced thought. Silence was fragile. We disembarked swiftly. Boots sank into dust carrying echoes disproportionate to weight. Demolitions expert deployed ground-penetrating radar, but results blurred into spirals. He muttered calculations beneath breath, tone wavering. Radar sweeps should yield strata. Instead, they revealed coils, repeating endlessly. Veteran leader signaled advance regardless, his hand steady. His calm steadied us, though I wondered if calmness itself was camouflage for dread. Entrance yawned through fractured concrete. Reinforced tunnel mouth descended at unnatural angle, geometry resisting comprehension. My eyes measured slope at 30 degrees, yet instruments insisted 20. Perception argued with data. Commander ordered descent without hesitation. We clipped oxygen rigs, calibrated lamps. Every strap tightened felt ritualistic, not mechanical. Inhaling recycled air tasted of iron, as though lungs already breathed subterranean dust. The communications specialist whispered into headset, testing encrypted link. Static surged, punctuated by syllables foreign to known languages. He stiffened, then claimed line was clear. I noted his pupils dilated unnaturally. The medic pressed fingers to pulse, recording accelerated rhythm. He dismissed concern, returning to dials. Already, tunnels reached outward, touching us before we set foot inside. Equipment was no barrier. We descended in formation. Each step pressed heavier than weight justified. Shadows moved reluctantly beneath beams, stretching as if anchored elsewhere. Lamps flickered, thou batteries confirmed full. Veteran leader carried point, rifle steady. Behind him, demolitions expert tapped wall with gloved knuckle, muttering ratios. Sound traveled unevenly, echoing forward, then returning distorted, delayed. Air thickened, pressing chest like unseen pressure suit. At 200 meters, the entrance sealed from behind as rubble shifted. Collapse was not total, yet daylight receded into strangled slit. Commander radioed surface, confirming status. Response returned, delayed, distorted, syllables rearranged though meaning intact. He ignored irregularities, ordering advance. I marked distortion as first fracture. Reality bent, not broken yet. Still, with every step downward, fracture deepened. By 400 meters, silence consumed more than absence of noise. It pulsed, rhythmic, pressing against eardrums like ocean depths. My own heartbeat felt amplified, as though tunnels used chest cavity as resonance chamber. Medic confirmed oxygen saturation normal, yet metallic taste thickened, coating tongue. Demolitions expert whispered, "Air remembers." No one answered. Silence allowed no dialogue, only endurance. Finally, after what instruments measured as 40 minutes, though watches disagreed, we reached chamber-marked Target Alpha. Coordinates aligned imperfectly. GPS flickered, timelines overlapped, data contradicted itself. Commander halted formation. Our lamps illuminated walls etched with grooves spiraling endlessly downward. Not carved, not natural, something between. We stood poised at threshold. Above ground, war awaited. Below, something older had been waiting longer. The chamber's threshold radiated cold that bypassed fabric, seeping directly into marrow. Instruments confirmed ambient temperature steady at 14 degrees Celsius, yet skin bristled, as if exposed to frost. Our lamps revealed walls coated in mineral deposits forming patterns too symmetrical to be accidental. The medic whispered they resembled cellular structures magnified beyond recognition. His breath condensed in steady clouds. Commander ordered perimeter check. Demolitions expert pressed sensors against stone. Readings pulsed erratic, alternating between density values harder than tungsten and softer than air. He muttered disbelief, recalibrating thrice. Results persisted. Communications specialists scanned frequencies, eyes narrowing as headset hissed with harmonics. He described them as voices in chords. None of us laughed. The tunnels were not silent. They sang. We advanced, rifles raised, lamps flickering against walls that seemed to shift subtly between blinks. Grooves spiraled tighter, guiding vision downward. My chest compressed as though gravity thickened, though readings held constant. Veteran leader maintained steady pace, each step deliberate. His silence anchored us. Yet I noted his knuckles pale, blood retreating. Even his body betrayed strain despite outward composure. At 200 meters deeper, walls widened unexpectedly into atrium carved by no tool we recognized. Ceiling arched beyond lamp reach. Darkness overhead felt thick, almost tactile. Laser rangefinders failed, beams scattering as though air absorbed measurement. Medic attempted chemical analysis of dust, reporting composition inconsistent with Earth samples. Trace elements unknown, arranged in ratios that suggested deliberate construction. Our formation tightened instinctively. Demolitions expert whispered coordinates aloud, but numbers shifted each time he repeated them. Frustration cracked his tone. Commander silenced him with gesture. Stillness grew oppressive, broken only by hiss of oxygen rigs and faint resonance underfoot. It was as if stone pulsed beneath boots, a living substrate. Veteran leader muttered, "Ground should not breathe." None responded. Communication specialist tuned to surface command. Static erupted, followed by distortion forming words not issued by headquarters. Language unknown, yet cadence disturbingly familiar, like lullabies reversed. He tore headset away, nose bleeding faintly. Medic staunched flow with gauze, muttering about vascular rupture. Yet specialist insisted voice carried instruction. Downward. He refused further clarification, though his gaze fixed hungrily into darkness. We resumed descent, forced by protocol. Passage narrowed again, forcing single file. Walls shimmered faintly, bioluminescence blooming in spirals. The glow revealed glyphs, etched shallow, curves bending beyond Euclidean symmetry. Eyes followed unwillingly, caught in loops. Medic blinked furiously, whispering medical mnemonics to anchor himself. I recorded glyphs with camera. Later review revealed blank stone. Devices denied what eyes had witnessed. At 500 meters, claustrophobia became physical. Air pressed like fluid, resisting each step. Chest heaved as though submerged. Instruments confirmed pressure unchanged. Yet bodies knew otherwise. Commander ordered halt, distributing ampules of stimulant. Bitter liquid seared tongues, metallic aftertaste lingering. Relief was fleeting. Darkness thickened, pressing against pupils, invading thought. Rationality began to fray, though denial kept formation moving. Veteran leader signaled movement at periphery. Shadow detached from wall, stretching longer than source justified. Lamps targeted void, revealing only mineral surface. Yet shadow persisted, elongated, then dissolved. Silence tightened around us. Demolitions expert's jaw clenched. He whispered again. Air remembers. His voice cracked, a fracture in reckless confidence. Commander barked order to maintain advance. To stop was death. Finally, we reached junction where tunnels split into 3 spiraling corridors. Compass spun wildly. GPS blanked. Command protocol required leftmost route. Yet every path pulsed faint glow identical, as though architecture itself erased distinction. Commander deliberated silently, then chose center. His tone brooked no debate. We followed. Behind us, rubble shifted faintly. The path back already considered retreat an illusion. Standard reconnaissance protocols initiated. Commander ordered triangulation of chamber dimensions using laser grid. Beams scattered unpredictably, lengths fluctuating with each pass. Readouts delivered averages inconsistent by several meters. Veteran leader recalibrated thrice before abandoning precision, marking boundaries manually. Official record would later describe dimensions as indeterminate. To us, it felt as though space itself resisted capture, shifting when observed. Medic unpacked diagnostic array, testing oxygen composition at regular intervals. Results remained technically breathable, yet carried trace isotopes never catalogued in Earth's crust. He frowned but reported stability. His professionalism endured, though I noted his knuckles trembled against instruments. He muttered something about centuries in lungs. None responded. His tone suggested breath belonged not to us, but to environment. Communications specialist attempted contact with surface. Transmission succeeded briefly, delivering distorted reports of calm. Latency expanded unnaturally, stretching seconds into minutes. Replies overlapped, syllables collapsing into themselves. He insisted network traffic contained patterns, as though repeating instructions hidden beneath distortion. His pupils dilated. Commander dismissed anomalies, emphasizing objective. Proceed. Confirm hostile infrastructure. Denial became armor heavier than any Kevlar. Demolitions expert planted seismic sensors to monitor potential collapses. Devices emitted steady pulses, recording vibrations. Yet data revealed rhythms not consistent with rock strata. Waves repeated like breath. He muttered coordinates, cursing instruments, then fell silent. Veteran leader placed hand on his shoulder, grounding him. The gesture steadied nerves briefly. Still, atmosphere thickened with unspoken acknowledgement. Tunnels lived in some fashion. We advanced further, lamps revealing junctions resembling standard engineering, reinforced concrete supports, wiring conduits trailing deeper. Familiarity offered comfort, though details disoriented. Wires looped back into walls without destination, repeating endlessly. Veteran leader tapped wall, listening. Echo returned identical regardless of distance struck. He frowned, muttering about absence of depth. Commander ordered silence. Yet silence no longer obeyed. It pulsed, pressed, Breathed. Initial 20 minutes marked, normal operations in logs. Measurements cataloged, samples collected, reconnaissance performed. Nothing overtly supernatural declared itself. Still, unease gnawed beneath procedure. Objects resisted classification, instruments contradicted perception, and silence itself thickened into weight. We recorded compliance, yet compliance concealed recognition. Already, tunnels shifted reality's fabric, bending precision into approximation. Normal operations were theater, masking what waited further down. At 300 additional meters, we encountered first true anomaly. Communication specialist froze mid-step, headset hissing with layered harmonics. His expression emptied as though listening to distant choir. We halted formation. Medic grasped his shoulder, pulse rapid but steady. He whispered that voices repeated our call signs backward. Recorders captured nothing. Static remained. For the first time, unease breached silence. Demolitions expert dropped seismic probe accidentally, device rolling against wall. Instead of clatter, sound elongated into drawn-out metallic shriek, reverberating unnaturally long. It persisted 30 seconds before ceasing. Stone vibrated subtly beneath boots. Veteran leader cursed under breath, crossing himself in instinct he had long abandoned. Commander dismissed it as acoustic anomaly. None contradicted him, though denial tasted bitter in mouths. Medic performed second air analysis, readouts unchanged, yet his eyes narrowed. He muttered chemical ratios seemed to anticipate. I demanded clarification. He stared at me, pupils dilated, then whispered, "Results shift, depending on what I expect to find." His words unsettled more than readings. Instruments obeyed thought instead of physics. Report would later redact this entirely. Yet I record it now. We pressed forward. Lamps illuminated passage lined with crude graffiti. Marks resembling human script but distorted, looped into impossible shapes. Paint still wet to touch. No insurgents detected. Communications specialist muttered it was not graffiti, but transcription. He refused elaboration. Veteran leader signaled weapons ready, though enemy absent. Darkness watched. My chest tightened. Taste of iron thick on tongue. First disturbance ended without casualty, yet atmosphere shifted permanently. We resumed operations, but silence fractured, filled with anticipation. Rational minds demanded explanation, faulty sensors, acoustics, chemical misreadings. Yet each justification rang hollow, unconvincing even to speaker. I wrote in log, environment responding. Words stared back like accusation. Downward path waited, patient, knowing first disturbance was merely invitation. Not long after disturbance, shadows began to misbehave. Lamps struck walls, yet silhouettes stretched against geometry incorrectly, bending upward when they should have fallen low. Veteran leader halted, raising hand. Our own shadows rippled as though submerged in water, breaking into fragments before rejoining. Commander barked order to advance, his tone steady, though hand on rifle trembled slightly. Communication specialist muttered continuously into headset, adjusting frequencies compulsively. At intervals, his words repeated an instant later, not from device, but from tunnel itself, echoing speech perfectly with altered inflections. Medic demanded he stop. He insisted he had not spoken. Voice persisted anyway, reciting coordinates none of us recognized. Numbers etched into memory like scars, refusing erasure. Demolitions expert scouted ahead, sensors registering movement. His lamp revealed footprints pressed into dust, bare, elongated, deeper than human weight would allow. Prints trailed downward into side passage, before halting abruptly, as though creature stepped out of dimension mid-stride. He cursed, attempting to laugh, sound collapsing hollow. Medic whispered not to follow. Commander ordered strict adherence to main route. At irregular intervals, lamps flickered violently. Darkness surged forward like tide, swallowing beams. For seconds, we stood blind. When light returned, graffiti on walls had changed. Curves bent differently. Spirals deepened. Photographs later displayed blank stone. Only memory bore proof. Medic scribbled fragments into notebook, though his handwriting slurred, resembling glyphs instead of letters. He tore page free, hiding it silently. Veteran leader attempted to anchor morale, instructing each of us to sound off. Voices returned correctly until communications specialist answered. His reply fractured into overlapping layers, his tone, then another identical yet deeper, then third whispering syllables backward. Silence followed. None confronted him. His face glistened with sweat. I wondered if specialist still belonged to team, or something else entirely. Air thickened, pressure mounting, heartbeats accelerated. Medic checked vitals, tachycardia consistent across team. Yet his monitor displayed additional waveform, oscillating beyond human biology. He pretended not to notice. Closing case. Commander's voice sharpened, ordering focus on objective. Words steadied us briefly. Still, tunnels responded with flicker, shadows lengthening further, footprints appearing freshly pressed ahead, waiting as if to guide us downward. Escalation no longer minor. Environment revealed hostility not through attack but through distortion. Shadows insubordinate, voices doubled, footprints leading nowhere, lamps rewriting walls. Rationality strained. Reports would later list anomalies as sensor malfunction, psychological stress. Yet memory refuses dilution. I knew then. We had crossed threshold. The tunnels were not structure. They were organism, and we were inside its veins. At 800 meters depth, the passage constricted into vertical shaft. Commander ordered controlled rappel. Demolitions expert anchored lines against surfaces softer than stone, harder than steel. Material pulsed faintly beneath carabiners, as though resentful of intrusion. We descended single file. Darkness thickened below, not absence of light, but presence of something swallowing beams. Our descent felt less physical than ritual. Halfway down, Medic's lamp struck carvings embedded into shaft walls. Shapes writhed with parallax, shifting when viewed from different angles. Glyphs resembled both organs and constellations, spirals looping into endless recursion. He whispered terms in Latin, then words in dialects I did not know he spoke. Commander cut him short, tone harsh. Silence followed, though silence trembled. Stone remembered. At base, shaft widened abruptly into cathedral-like chamber. Ceiling receded into black infinity. Floor shimmered wet, though no moisture detected on boots. Echoes distorted, arriving before sound was made. Communications specialist froze, headset pressed tight, whispering, "They are here." He raised trembling finger toward darkness ahead. Veteran leader steadied rifle. Yet before target appeared, we already felt presence inside marrow. First sign manifested as vibration in air, frequencies resonating with bones. Lamps flickered simultaneously. Darkness rippled, then folded, revealing figure. Height indistinct, shape fluctuating between humanoid and elongated abstraction. Surface pale, reflective, eyes absent yet perceiving. It stood without motion, yet walls bent inward as if orbiting it. Time fractured. Seconds elongated into hours, heartbeats irregular, lungs forgetting rhythm. Demolitions expert broke silence, voice cracking. He demanded permission to prime charges. Commander denied instantly, ordering restraint. Figure tilted head, or suggestion of head, toward him. Shadow detached from demolitions expert's body, stretched upward, aligning with entity. For several seconds, both shadows moved in unison, despite expert trembling uncontrollably. Then his shadow returned violently, collapsing into floor, leaving him gasping, teeth chattering uncontrollably. Medic attempted communication, perhaps reflex of science. He whispered halting phrases in Hebrew, Arabic, English. No response. Instead, chamber walls pulsed faint glow, glyphs lighting sequentially in rhythm with his words. Communications specialist clutched headset, insisting patterns formed responses. He began to speak simultaneously in multiple tones, mouth articulating syllables his body could not produce. Blood dripped from his ears. Veteran leader steadied formation, commanding retreat posture. Entity did not advance, yet distance felt unstable. Closer when unobserved, farther when faced directly. Lamps faltered. At one blink, entity split into 3 identical figures, circling perimeter. Next blink, It reformed singular. Our rifles tracked targets futilely, barrels trembling. Commander hissed order, "Hold fire." Ammunition was meaningless when physics itself refused constancy. The medic collapsed briefly, notebook spilling. Pages fluttered open, displaying drawings never made by his hand, skeletal systems of unrecognizable species, diagrams of hearts beating in impossible geometries. He screamed incoherently, clutching temples. Entity tilted again, and notebook pages blackened simultaneously, letters burning away without flame. Smell of ozone-filled chamber. Medic wept silently, gaze vacant. Rational mind dismantled. Entity then produced sound, not roar, not speech, but cord-vibrating marrow. Bones ached, vision doubled, teeth felt loosened. Radios erupted in simultaneous channels. Our voices repeated backwards, layered with shrieks resembling birth cries. Communications specialist convulsed, headset sparking. He rose unsteadily, eyes blank, voice no longer his own. Deeper. Tone was neither command nor request. It was inevitability. We aimed rifles instinctively. Commander raised hand, halting fire. He whispered something I will never forget. Weapons are irrelevant here. Entity remained unmoving, or moved in ways we could not perceive. Then, without transition, it dissolved into shadow, vanishing into stone. Silence slammed back, heavier than gunfire. For first time, team recognized truth. Tunnels contained inhabitants, not emptiness. Encounter was irreversible. After encounter, formation fractured in spirit though bodies remained aligned. Commander ordered regroup and assessment. Medic's pulse spiked erratically, hands trembling, gaze unfocused. He muttered anatomical sequences across centuries. Galen's doctrines, medieval alchemy, modern cardiology, then unknown names none recognized. His notes restructured into symbols beyond language. We watched silently. Rationality decayed. He no longer healed bodies. He recorded mutations. Communications specialist worsened rapidly. His headset emitted constant harmonics, audible to us without speaker engaged. He spoke in simultaneous layers, human tone overlaying static bursts. He insisted transmissions contained coordinates deeper still. When asked for origin, he smiled faintly, blood dripping from nostrils. He whispered, "Signal comes from inside stone." Commander threatened to confiscate headset. Specialist laughed without humor. Demolitions expert displayed volatility. His shadow no longer obeyed lamp angles. It stretched unpredictably, detaching briefly before snapping back. He insisted explosives should be armed, declaring, "Stone wants release." His words unsteady, reverent. He began tapping detonator rhythmically, like prayer beads. Veteran leader seized device, commanding discipline. Expert's hands shook violently, veins bulging as if reacting to suppressed detonation. Veteran leader alone retained semblance of control. His voice steadied us, yet I noted hesitation. He recited coordinates incorrectly, misremembered protocols he had drilled for decades. His memory unraveled subtly. Still, he forced us forward, refusing to acknowledge fractures. His leadership carried weight, but cracks in recollection suggested infection of something deeper. Mind itself dissolving, rewritten by environment's geometry. Entity never reappeared directly, yet presence persisted. Walls pulsed faint glow in rhythm with medic's mutterings. Glyphs shifted each time communication specialists spoke into headset, as if tunnels obeyed alien signal. Demolitions expert's shadow danced in anticipation, twitching when detonator clicked. Veteran leader paused mid-command, repeating sentences word for word without recognition. We advanced still. Mission tethered us to downward spiral. At 900 meters, chamber walls shimmered as if liquid. Lamps bent, beams refracting into prisms. Medic reached forward, touching stone. His fingers sank briefly, dissolving into surface before retracting intact. He stared, lips whispering, "Membranes." Commander demanded explanation. He only smiled, eyes wide. Skin glistened faint phosphorescence. It was not sweat. His body had begun reflecting chamber's glow. Communications specialist knelt suddenly, headset sparking. He pressed ear to stone, murmuring with reverence. He claimed to hear voices older than language, chanting in tones that bent perception. His pupils dilated until iris vanished. Static bled into chamber, vibrating walls. He turned toward us, smile cracked. "I can relay now." His voice was not singular. It was collective, echoing impossible multitude. Demolitions expert broke formation, planting charges without order. He muttered calculations feverishly, claiming ratios dictated by whispers. We restrained him physically. He screamed, Shadow fought him, begged to let it complete cycle. His detonator clicked uselessly. Glyphs glowed in response. Veteran leader wrested device away, locking it. Still, expert trembled, veins glowing faint beneath skin, body synchronizing with spirals. Veteran leader staggered mid-command, clutching temples. He described vineyards from youth, memory he had shared earlier. But details changed, location shifted, seasons inverted, family faces unfamiliar. He insisted memory correct. When confronted, he faltered, repeating phrases as if rehearsed by another. His past unraveled, replaced by fragments stitched from unknown source. Leadership endured, but foundation of self corroded silently. Commander, though firm, revealed strain. His maps no longer aligned with environment. He studied laminated sheets furiously, then tore them apart, declaring them lies. He scribbled fresh diagrams on stone walls directly, hands steady, yet expression haunted. Geometry he drew matched glyphs already glowing. He did not notice duplication. Authority persisted, but he too answered to architecture now. By 1,000 meters, team altered beyond recovery. Medic glowed faintly, voice spanning centuries of knowledge. Communications specialist spoke as conduit, relaying transmissions not ours. Demolitions expert bonded with Shadow, detonator his rosary. Veteran leader's memory rewritten into strangers' lives. Commander replaced maps with glyphs, authority corroded. And I recorded still, words trembling, reality unraveling. We were no longer soldiers. We were specimens. At 1,200 meters, corridor narrowed into archway sealed by stone slab. Grooves radiated outward like ribs. Demolitions expert pleaded to breach with charges, veins glowing faintly. Commander hesitated, then approved limited detonation. Expert's hands trembled, reverent. He whispered ratios not written in manuals, yet placement flawless. Charges primed. We retreated 20 meters, countdown initiated. Even silence held its breath. Explosion thundered, but instead of smoke or rubble, shockwave dissolved into harmonic resonance. Walls sang, glyphs flared, spirals cascading like fire through veins. Stone slab liquefied silently, peeling open as membrane. Heat signatures spiked across scanners, though no temperature rise felt. Medic collapsed, clutching head, muttering anatomical diagrams of creatures unrecorded by biology. Specialist fell to knees, headset blazing with signals. Beyond threshold stretched chamber vast as cathedral, yet alive. Walls pulsed faint phosphorescence, arteries glowing beneath translucent surface. Ceiling bent endlessly, curving in geometries defying orientation. Center pulsed monolith, neither stone nor flesh, height immeasurable. It resonated deep hum synchronizing with heartbeats. We froze, weapons raised uselessly. Entity returned, not singular but countless, forms shifting in rhythm with monolith's pulse. Shadows detached from us, peeling upward like smoke. Each formed silhouettes of ourselves, distorted longer, leaner, faces hollow. They moved independently, circling perimeter. Demolitions expert screamed at his doppelganger, detonator clicking. Shadow mirrored gesture, detonator non-existent yet functional. Explosives on his vest armed spontaneously. Veteran leader tackled him, wrenching device away. Yet Shadow still glowed, explosion imminent. Then it dissipated. Communication specialist rose, headset fused into flesh, wires burrowing beneath skin. His mouth opened, broadcasting frequencies aloud. Layered languages, reversed tones, harmonics we felt more than heard. Monolith pulsed brighter with each syllable. He proclaimed coordinates in sequence untranslatable, then looked directly at Commander, eyes blank, saying, "It knows you." His body convulsed violently. Medic restrained him, but voice continued speaking. Medic glowed brighter, skin transparent enough to reveal veins spiraling wrong directions. He drew diagrams mid-air, shapes of skeletons that dissolved instantly. He screamed knowledge was too much, too old, scrambled, his body convulsed as though heart beating to monolith's rhythm instead of his own. Yet he smiled faintly through agony. It heals differently. We understood then, healing had inverted. Veteran leader attempted to command retreat, voice trembling. He repeated extraction protocol, but sentences looped, beginning again before ending. His words became recursive, spiraling like glyphs. We screamed at him to stop. He continued, face blank, his memory rewritten mid-command. He had forgotten why we descended, yet still demanded mission proceed. Authority stripped, yet discipline forced us forward. Commander raised rifle at monolith, firing controlled burst. Bullets vanished into surface without sound, swallowed whole. No ricochet, no fracture. Only glow brightened, glyphs igniting violently. Shadows convulsed, collapsing back into bodies with force that drove us to knees. Radios erupted in screams. Our own voices played backward. My lungs burned metallic air. Time fractured. Watches displayed hours passed in seconds. Monolith pulsed once more. Darkness surged outward like wave, passing through us. Bones vibrated painfully, organs twisted. Vision doubled into impossible spectrums. We saw corridors collapsing into themselves, stairways spiraling into stars, cities buried under oceans that never existed. Madness flooded perception. Medic vomited blood glowing faint blue. Specialist collapsed, voice continuing from walls themselves. Expert sobbed. Detonator useless. Commander ordered retreat. His voice cracked, authority trembling yet absolute. We staggered back through archway. Behind us, monolith pulsed again, glyphs burning brighter, chamber alive with resonance. Stone slab reformed silently, sealing entity from us, or us from it. Silence returned, though silence was heavier, laden with memory of what we had seen. None spoke. Retreat was survival, not victory. Commander's order to retreat carried weight of finality. Formation staggered through constricting tunnels, lungs burning metallic. Glyphs on walls dimmed, then flared violently, as if resisting departure. Medic clutched chest, veins glowing beneath translucent skin. Demolitions expert whispered detonator prayers, though explosives no longer armed. Communications specialist bled from ears, yet static continued to issue from throat. We moved anyway. Passages twisted unnaturally, corridors reappearing though previously traversed. We marked walls with chalk. Minutes later, marks realigned into spirals, sliding from place. Veteran leader insisted route correct, though coordinates looped. He repeated extraction timeline, but watches disagreed violently. Mine displayed 14 hours elapsed. Commander's showed 20 minutes. Medic's hands shook, claiming all watches correct. Time itself fractured, splintering into paradox. Shadows resumed insubordination. They fled walls entirely, racing ahead down tunnel as if guiding path. Commander barked to ignore them, yet instinct demanded we follow. Veteran leader swore the shadows pointed toward surface. He led with conviction. We obeyed, desperation outweighing reason. Steps echoed double, one set ours, one set belonging to silhouettes racing always ahead, never waiting. Air pressure shifted violently, ears popped, lungs constricted. Oxygen monitors insisted stable saturation, yet breathing grew impossible. I inhaled metallic sweetness, like rust dissolved into vapor. Medic collapsed, whispering lungs inverted. We hauled him upright. He staggered, glowing brighter, skin pulsing faint light. He begged us to keep moving. Words broke into fragments, Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew, each tongue bleeding into the next. Communication specialist halted suddenly, ear pressed to stone. He screamed coordinates at impossible pitch. Tunnel vibrated, ceiling fracturing above. Debris collapsed narrowly, missing formation. Commander struck headset free, but voice persisted from walls themselves, echoing specialist's tone. His mouth moved soundlessly now, yet stone spoke for him. Shadows flickered violently, sprinting ahead. We followed, compelled not by trust, but inevitability. At final ascent shaft, rubble shifted, revealing slit of pale night above. Convoy extraction channel visible. Relief surged through formation. Commander ordered final climb. Demolitions expert wept silently, detonator discarded. Veteran leader boosted medic upward, his arms trembling with exhaustion. One by one we ascended, leaving darkness behind. Yet as surface air struck, time warped violently. Watches froze, then spun erratic. Surface greeted us wrong. Stars above multiplied, colors unnatural, violet, copper, shades unnamed. Desert horizon shimmered metallic, dunes bending into impossible angles. Shadows of convoy vehicles stretched upward into sky, unbound by sun or moon. Extraction crew moved too calmly, expressions unreadable. Radios declared mission lasted 20 minutes. Our bodies claimed 14 hours. Discrepancy unspoken. Escape achieved physically. Mentally, impossible. First to reveal alteration was medic. During surface examination, his left arm dissolved at elbow, vanishing cleanly as if erased. No blood, no pain, only sudden absence. He stared at Stump calmly, whispering anatomical names in sequence, none belonging to human lexicons. He insisted limb had been borrowed elsewhere. No surgeon could contest. Arm gone. Reality offered no scar. Communications specialist spoke in tones that fractured perception. His voice became static-laced frequencies, each syllable resonating as electronic hum. Attempted words collapsed into mechanical bursts. Recorders captured only garbled signals, though ears perceived meaning faintly. He was conduit now, half human, half transmitter. Command viewed condition as asset, but specialist's eyes betrayed horror. His mouth moved, voice not his own. Medic's knowledge degraded further. When questioned on basic human anatomy, he spoke of organs belonging to extinct species, circulatory patterns spanning centuries. He diagnosed Commander with liver of Mesopotamian construct, then laughed hysterically. His knowledge scrambled across timelines, as though medical truth had collapsed into universal archive. No treatment, reversed degradation. He continued to write, symbols indistinguishable from glyphs below. Veteran leader endured differently, his memories rewritten entirely. He insisted tunnels were empty, mission uneventful. His journals described sterile walls, silence unbroken. He repeated fabricated story without flaw, eyes clear. Command seized upon this narrative, cementing it as official record. Yet when asked about vineyards, his face froze blank. The past had been amputated. His steadiness remained, but belonged to lies. I remain with my own alteration, memory intact but unstable, each attempt to speak twisting into false report. Words fracture mid-sentence, reshaping themselves into denials. Written testimony alone preserves fragments of truth. Speaking betrays me into silence. Others altered in body, knowledge, or memory. I altered in voice. Truth itself slides away whenever lips move. Testimony exists only here. Extraction proceeded with unsettling smoothness. Convoy engines hummed without interruption. Base officers greeted us without urgency, their calmness unnatural after mission severity. Medical teams awaited, yet examinations proved disturbingly cursory. Scanners passed over vanished limb without alarm. Communications specialists' static voice dismissed as equipment malfunction. Veteran leaders' false memory accepted instantly. The operation's irregularities were not questioned. They were ignored. In sterile debrief chamber, walls gleamed white without blemish. Commander's testimony delivered monotone, describing uneventful reconnaissance. His words diverged sharply from truth we endured, yet officers nodded approvingly. He sketched empty corridors on briefing sheets, hands steady. None confronted inconsistencies. Reports already rewritten before his voice fell silent. Mission classified successful. All anomalies expunged. Language became blade-severing reality. Medic's condition cataloged clinically. File noted limb loss by unknown means, marked as amputation under sterile procedure. His writings confiscated, sealed immediately. Glyph-like diagrams dismissed as delusion. Still, Officers studied fragments longer than necessary before removal. He requested treatment for knowledge distortion. Doctors responded blankly, prescribing silence. His brilliance reduced to data point. Archives swallowed his mind into locked drawer. Communications specialist restrained with wires removed surgically from flesh, yet his voice continued emitting static. Doctors recorded transmissions dispassionately, refusing translation. When he begged for release from frequencies, words twisted into hums mid-sentence. File documented condition as vocal cord injury. He was reassigned to experimental communications wing. His humanity dissolved behind locked doors, converted into transmitter for command's ambitions. Veteran leaders' fabricated account adopted as official narrative. He was promoted quietly, entrusted with new responsibilities. His memory fracture reframed as discipline. No mention of glyphs, shadows, or entities entered record. He repeated false testimony flawlessly, eyes unblinking. For officers, his emptiness was asset, his past erased, his future reprogrammed. He lived, but he no longer belonged to himself. I endured separate fate. When I spoke truth, sentences twisted without consent. Debrief transcript captured lies spilling from my mouth. Empty tunnels, silent corridors. I screamed against my own voice, but sound betrayed me. Only written words preserved fragments, though these too risked confiscation. Debrief ended sterile, officers dismissing us as anomalies contained, files sealed within non-existent archives. In final briefing, assignment orders distributed. Each survivor redirected into roles reflecting their alterations. Medic absorbed by research division studying alternative anatomies. Communication specialist transferred to signals department. Veteran leader into psychological operations. Commander vanished from records entirely. Myself, ordered into indefinite observation. Suppression was not punishment. It was containment. The truth did not vanish. It was buried deliberately. I write these final words within quarters assigned for recovery. Apartment sterile, walls white as morgue. Yet shadows here do not obey lamps. They stretch independently, bending at angles lamps cannot dictate. Sometimes additional limbs emerge briefly, hands, claws, antennae, before folding back into silhouette. I pretend not to see. Pretending is easier, but shadows have memory now. They watch. Electronics betray me nightly. Screens flicker without input, displaying fragments of containment logs I never accessed. Numbers scroll endlessly, countdowns toward unknown events. Symbols matching tunnel glyphs appear across monitors, glowing faint green before dissolving. Once I glimpsed coordinates not of Earth. When I blinked, text reverted to system error. Machines whisper silently, but their whispers are older than circuits. Lights hum irregularly, casting symbols across ceiling when they flicker. Patterns resemble diagrams stolen from medics' notebooks. I cannot erase them. I cannot unsee them. They pulse in rhythm with heartbeat, synchronizing thought with geometry. I wonder if home is still home, or merely extension of tunnels. Perhaps surface itself is chamber carved by something vast and unseen. At night I hear footsteps in hallway. Not human footsteps. Too heavy, too deliberate, each strike resonating through concrete. They halt outside door, pausing long enough for breath to seize. Then they continue, fading into silence. I never open door. To open is invitation. To deny is temporary. Still, steps always return. Patience heavier than any army. My watch no longer marks hours. It loops seconds, fractures into spirals, numbers repeating endlessly. Yet shadow on wall suggests different time altogether. Contradictions spread like disease, rewriting perception. Memory unreliable, speech corrupted, but writing remains weapon. Still, I sense pen rebelling, ink forming glyphs unbidden. Words no longer mine alone. Language prepares for invasion. The entity is patient. It requires no conquest, no battle. It can wait as we dismantle ourselves, as our governments suppress truth, as our bodies fracture under silence. It waits for the inevitable, not with hatred, not with urgency, but with indifference older than civilizations. I understand now. The tunnels were not battlefield, they were mirror. and we are already undone.